Hello everyone, how's it going? Today is Tuesday, March 11th. Welcome back to another video, live stream if you're going to be hanging out live with me today. I hope you had a great weekend. I certainly did. I'm really happy to be back in my studio making some progress on this self-portrait painting. Thank you so much to everyone who's been supporting this project and my live streams and my channel. It's been a lot of fun to share more of my work here on this platform, and in the video format. It's really satisfying to be able to share things that are happening in real time like this. So I'm eager to get back into the painting. It's been a few days now, so I think Friday was the last day that I was doing any painting, and it's been a couple days. Some of the colors on my palette started to dry out. Mostly my burnt umber, I noticed, was really tacky. It had a really hard sort of exterior skin that I had to scrape off. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more burnt umber on my palette. And then we can get started. I'm just gonna grab a glove real quick as well. So just getting a few things set up before we can start painting. I just bought a new box of these, not like non-latex gloves for painting, and I don't know where I put the box, so I have to try to find that. My studio's a mess right now. Hey Lemon, how's it going? I hope you had a great weekend. Mine was really great. It was pretty relaxing. Actually, I mentioned that I was maybe going to a convention on Saturday, but my brother's friend actually was able to go, so I didn't go with my brother. But it sounded like they had a really good time. So I was home all weekend, just kind of working on some projects, non-art related projects, doing some garden prepping with my wife. We built 2 more short raised garden beds in our backyard, and the weather was really nice here in Wisconsin over the weekend, so it's been a really good couple of days lately. The only bummer is I didn't get to do any painting, and I definitely notice if it's been a few days since I've been able to do something creative, it starts to kind of throw off my my mood. So I'm happy to be back in my studio. But how was your weekend? Did you end up going to a conference? You were talking about a convention or conference too. Let's see, do I have everything else I need here to get started? I think so. All right, I'm just going to kind of check in with the painting, figure out where I want to get started today. At some point I need to get back into my self-portrait part of the painting and put in a bit more information. I just recently trimmed my beard, so my face doesn't look like how it did when I started the painting, so that's kind of a problem. But my hair is pretty much the same, so at some point in the next couple of days I'm hoping to spend some time working on the portrait again. So today I think I'll probably focus on this area. and maybe even, let's see how dry this is. This feels pretty dry actually. I might be able to start adding in those temperature shifts that I was talking about here on the paneling of the wall. I'll try not to bump my camera too many times. But yeah, things have been really good. Thanks for asking. Yesterday I shipped out a painting that sold through my online shop on my website to a new collector in New York City. I don't know how this gentleman Max, I don't know how he found my work, but he purchased a small 6x4" painting that I made back in 2022 that was in my shop update. So I spent a few hours yesterday packaging and shipping out that painting. But otherwise things have been pretty good. Let's see, what did you say? Well, that's awesome. Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. I'm glad you had a great weekend and you had a fun time at the convention. One of these years, I think I'll try to go with my brother to something like that. It was his first time, and it was one of our really good mutual friends, Nick. It was his first time going to, so I know that they were excited to see what the atmosphere was like, and my brother was telling me a little bit about just the variety of things that they had there in terms of merchandise, or I know there were some like panel discussions, and he said a lot of people were in cosplay, which is really cool. All right, let's see. What am I doing here? So I kind of want to try something where the lower panels on the wall are slightly warmer in temperature. So I'm going to take ultramarine blue and alizarin and make a violet color. And I can try to keep this closer to grabbing a little bit of burnt umber and ultramarine blue. I'm going to make this slightly cooler because that purple looked very different than the blue that's on the wall. I think I need to get some more ultramarine blue here too. This position of my phone is going to be a little bit of a problem, I think, today, just with leaning over my palette, so hopefully I'm not blocking the view too much. Something I noticed too, I was going back and watching bits and pieces of some of the recent live streams, and I used to have my microphone sort of attached to my easel off camera here, and every time I would be mixing something or like really using my brush and like dabbing the paint, it would create this like loud thumping sound. I didn't notice it when I was recording, so then when I went back and watched it, I was like, wow, that's really loud. So now my microphone is attached to the tripod that has the phone holder attachment on it. It's kind of a whole crazy operation. There's 3 different clamps like this that I'm using to hold everything together. But it works, I think you just kind of have to work with what you have. All right, let's see. What am I doing here? Let's grab a wider brush. And let's see how warm this starts to look. It's actually pretty good. I guess the thing I need to figure out too is like, should it be a lot brighter or should the value be the same? So that's something I'm going to try to play with a little bit here as I'm working on this. I'll grab a little bit of cadmium red medium, or actually this is cadmium red light. Mix this up. How are your projects going? I know last week you were talking about some of your ink drawings and different things that you were working on. Hopefully those are going well. Thanks for tuning in again. I appreciate it. That's awesome that you're already working on another painting or drawing. It's good to hear that it's going well too. Hopefully you're feeling like this really kind of inspiring feeling. I know for me it's a really rewarding time when you feel like you have a project or a series that you're working on and you can just sort of like go and check in and work, and make the artwork without having to sit and kind of like decide, well, what do I want to make today? It's nice when you kind of have half of that figured out already. You can just jump right into the process. Okay, let's see. This might be a good middle color here to work with. Maybe I'll grab a little bit more of this. So I'm just trying to make a gradient between this purple color and this blue that's on the wall. So it'd be nice if it sort of blended optically between the panels. I'm also trying to think about the texture of the marks, whether they should be really opaque and continuous or maybe a little bit more organic and broken with their texture. I kind of like the more atmospheric broken look. The panel has a very I guess like semi-smooth weave of the linen canvas, and I can use that by dragging the brush with a fairly dry brush to create more of like a broken mark, which to me feels a little bit more natural than a very flat opaque color, kind of like the blue. I mean, that's such a even solid color in a lot of these lines, that if I can show some of the blue through this warm violet, I think that'll help things read more naturally and organically in terms of light, But yeah, my weekend yesterday, well, what's today? Tuesday? On Sunday, I went to visit my sister and my mom, my sister's family and my mom out in like more towards like central Wisconsin, and got to hang out with my nephews and enjoy the nice weather because it was like 55, I think, or 56 on Sunday and sunny. And we just got to hang out all day and play games, run around in the backyard. So that was really nice. I've been talking with my wife just about like, how much I notice that balance of getting out. I basically work from home right now, and it looks like I'll continue to be working from home through most of the rest of the year. I'll be traveling a little bit this year for some plein air painting competitions and teaching opportunities, but most of my work is done here at our house, and my studio's in our basement, so I don't really get out of the house that often these days, which sometimes is nice. It's nice to just sort of like have your setup. You don't have to worry about setting up a studio area, taking it all down, or traveling to a studio area that sometimes I feel like that can be less productive, I guess, in a weird way. Like, I don't know, I can see it both ways, where sometimes it's good to have an outside studio with other people working and just depending on how far away it is from where you live, I think, you can get quite a bit of work done that way. But anyway, what was I trying to say? Where was I going with that? Just being kind of like working at home remotely like this, you can kind of start to go a little stir crazy, especially in the winter where, it's so cold outside in Wisconsin that you don't really want to spend much time outside. But, after this weekend, it was so warm and sunny that it really felt like this start of spring, which was really nice. So things are good. Things are really good. I'm just a little bit worried about getting this painting done before the end of this month. You're drawing digitally this time. Yeah, I know how that goes, where it's like your brain is kind of like split between these different projects, and it's it can be really hard for me to balance that, those different projects at the same time. But I also feel like there's a healthy side to that too, where, if you're just working on one project all the time, I think sometimes we can start to, I don't know, kind of feel like that's our entire process is wrapped up in one piece. And I wonder sometimes how much pressure comes from that experience to really love what we're doing and making. It's nice to have multiple things going to kind of remind us that, like, yeah, this is a really great project, or this is a really fun idea that I'm working on, but it doesn't represent my entire, current process or my voice entirely. So these two colors I just put in, I feel like are a little too dark. I think temperature-wise, they're making sense, but they might even be a little too blue. I think this is the problem when I take a break from working on a painting, like over the weekend, is that when I come back and I'm trying to remix a certain color, it can be really challenging to find that color again and try to recall which pigments and paints I used to get there. Like in this, it's like, well, was there a lot of burnt umber in there? I think I did try to neutralize the blue a little bit with burnt umber. I'm gonna try to see if I can make that color first. I probably should have done this first. I'm pretty sure I probably used this Portland Cool Gray. One of the things I'll do is take a little bit of my color that I'm trying to match and just hover over part of the painting. The other thing you can do is just put it right on top of the painting in a small spot and see if it disappears, then you're really close. So this is pretty close right now. Actually, it looks like this was the color. Man, I feel like I'm all out of practice right now, so I didn't paint over the weekend. It's funny how that happens too. It's like if you're really actively making stuff every day for like a week and then you take 2 or 3 days off, you know, it's amazing how weird it feels to kind of get back in the swing of things. So like I already forgot that I had put this little pile of my background color just to save it. I forgot that I did that on Friday, or maybe that was Thursday. But moving that right next to the pile that I was making, you know, it might be hard to see on camera how different they are, but they're pretty similar for the most part. The one I was just working on seems a little bit more warm than this one. So I'm going to take just a little bit more ultramarine blue and mix that into this part of the pile and see if we can get these to look really, really close together. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay, they look like they're pretty close together. I don't need a whole lot of this color. I just need it to be able to help me ease into what I already have in the painting in those panels. So what I need to do right now is try to carry this over here. Other thing I remember talking about last week for this painting was trying to incorporate a little bit more of a shadow between the figure and the wall, to make them feel a little bit more like they're in the same space. So I should probably do that right now too. Like maybe behind the side of the figure I'll just mix up a darker shadow color and put that in and see what happens. So I really want there to feel like there's quite a bit of space between the figure and the wall. So let's take ultramarine blue, burnt umber, maybe a little bit of alizarin. I feel like the shadow could be slightly warm. Looks like that might be too dark. Let's grab a little bit of this. Actually, maybe I should just try to glaze this shadow in. So we're going to take a little bit of our oleo gel medium, and with a pretty clean part of my paper towel, we're going to oil out this part of the painting over here. This will help me create more of a soft blend for the shadow. So I also think between the hand and the body, I feel like there should be a shadow in here. Like as I was putting these colors in, I'm imagining if light is, hitting the figure. It's almost like there's light coming from the window and from this front part of the figure. So I'm trying to figure out, well, where do the shadows fall? You know what I mean? And I think I remember also talking about pulling in more of a warm light kind of glow on the body. So that might be something I'll do today too. And a lot of that's going to be just from imagination, versus setting up a light bulb with a really warm light and trying to situate it in my studio. I could do that, but I don't know. That seems like a little too much work for a very small aspect of the painting. And maybe it would be more interesting if there's like this context that's changing something that's real, like the portrait, in terms of real in the way that like this was observed from a mirror naturally. But if that's being influenced or informed by something that's, taken from imagination or informed by imagination. Let's just carry the medium all the way down here as well, since I'll probably end up glazing over part of the shirt as well. I just have to be careful because I put these two colors in here. It's always interesting to see how deep and rich the colors become when you oil out and put a thin layer of medium over the painting that's dry. This off. So now it'll be really easy to control excuse me, how transparent this paint can become, and how smooth the edge can appear. I can basically just go right over parts of the figure and soften the edge of things here. Because I kind of want to make it feel like this is really receding towards the wall. I don't want to lose the details of the wall. Like I want to make sure that those horizontal lines are still visible, and I want to make sure that you can separate the body from the wall. Like even though they're in shadow, that they're going to be able to be separated and understood as different objects in space. So if I take a softer brush here, I can pretty easily blend this around. And this is why oiling out on an oil painting can be really useful, is because I didn't really put down that much paint, but because it's being painted into a wet layer of medium, that ends up allowing this very small amount of paint to glide and blend pretty seamlessly, which is really nice. And that's going to help convey this really soft, atmospheric, volumetric type of form. A little bit more medium up in the corner here.
Stay warm and save every day. All in the Pick and Save app. Get tender black Angus beef boneless chuck roast for $5.99 a pound with your card. And we've lowered prices. You can save 15% or more on hundreds of items like Thomas Mini Bagels, Campbell's SpaghettiOs, and more. Shop these deals at your local Pick and Save, less than 10 miles away. Or click the screen now to download the Pick and Save app to save big today. Pick and Save, fresh for everyone. Prices and product availability subject to change. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Okay, let's see. Maybe I'll put a little bit more down here.
Before the cat pulls away.
Hey, thanks, man. No, wait, my phone! Come back! It's my boarding pass, credit cards, phone numbers, my life! Come back!
Checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. State is rated subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Okay, I'm definitely thinking that now this doesn't make sense. I'm going to see if I can wipe out that purple color and carry the same glazing technique over here. Oh, so you're working on part of the process where you've got quite a bit of information down and trying to figure out like which details maybe are still necessary. I feel like that happens to me all the time too, where especially if I'm drawing or painting over a drawing, that's where sometimes I get to the painting step and I'm like, why did I pick so many small details of information? You know, it's like maybe I should have just started painting instead of drawing. But I don't know, it's kind of interesting how that can inform our process too, where I feel like sometimes having a lot of information gives us more options, which is interesting. But yeah, that's always kind of a weird place to be at in the process. It's like, what do you start to maybe let go of or simplify? Is that kind of how you feel right now, Lemon, with this piece that you're working on? I'm trying to remember, I know you've talked a little bit about this ink series that you're working on. Do you kind of see it as like one long project, or is it just sort of like a few pieces that are similar? I'm sorry, I can't remember. I know you had said the subject matter that you're working with, but I'm trying to remember what that is right now, and I can't for some reason. But yeah, curious to hear more about this project that you're working on. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's kind of similar, like sort of a series of pieces. Do you think you'll exhibit them somewhere as a group, or is this sort of just for your own process and curious? A little bit back here. I'm gonna also bring this color down maybe over the shoulder. Kind of feels like that should be in shadow too, this foreground area here. So we're gonna take a little bit of our medium and kind of like prime the surface. The thing I have to be careful about is like you can maybe see as I'm adding the medium with the paper towel, sometimes that starts to pull off some of the paint that was there before. Like that happened in the neck. This is almost all the way through to the primer part of the panel. You can't even really see that yellow, kind of yellow-green color. I think that rubbed off in those spots as well. So I have to be just really mindful of like, do I want to remove some of the material or paint, or is this that like rough look and texture and noise something that I really like that I want to try to incorporate into the painting? Because sometimes I really like what happens in those areas. Like it gives the painting more of this like weathered, textured look that's sometimes really interesting. This glaze that I'm working with right now is also very warm compared to the wall. And I'm trying to decide if that makes sense, if that's something that I want to keep. That like purpley kind of glow. What I could maybe do is pull in a little bit more ultramarine blue towards the top and like these parts of the wall maybe if I want to make it feel colder. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if this purple is something that I really like. I kind of want this portrait to feel like it's kind of coming out of, like lurking in the shadow or coming out of the shadows. I think that's an interesting visual, especially given the information that's in the window now. I think if self-portrait feels like it's observing that space from a distance, I think that's an interesting concept. And I really want, like I said before, it's like I really want to make it feel like this figure is standing in front of the wall and really in this exterior space with the wall. I kind of messed up this part of the hand. It's a lot lighter now because of that brighter purple color I put into the wall, so I wonder if I can get some of that out of there. Okay, let's switch over to that warm pink color. And let's see if I can start to create a feeling like there's this warm, glowing effect on the body. This might take a few different attempts to kind of find that relationship of light on the face and the hand, but you just have to kind of jump right in, I think. Let's see.
Stay warm and save every day. All in the Pick and Save app. Get tender black Angus beef boneless chuck roast for $5.99 a pound with your card. And we've lowered prices. You can save 15% or more on hundreds of items like Thomas Mini Bagels, Campbell's SpaghettiOs, and more. Shop these deals at your local Pick and Save, less than 10 miles away. Or click the screen now to download the Pick and Save app and save big today. Pick and Save, fresh for everyone. Prices and product availability subject to change. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Okay, that might be a little too bright. Let's bring the value down just a little bit.
Buy a new house, you might say, "Shut the front door." Winning. No, seriously. Shut the front door. We know this house ends. But you actually need to say, "Neighbor, neighbor, State Farm is there." That's right. Local State Farm agent is there to help you choose the coverage you need. Welcome to my good neighborhood. Should I say that again? So, just remember, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm is there.
So we're definitely having to use quite a bit of imagination for this part, and the trick, I think, is going to be really stepping back and trying to decide if something feels believable, you know, like the shape on the cheek, like if this was really a relationship between a space that's emitting light into the foreground, how much would we actually see that color wrapping around the object, or in this case, the figure, or the portrait. So I'm trying to go kind of slowly here and really ask myself this question of like, how much is enough, you know, to be able to start connecting those two things together. So what I'm going to do is zoom in on our video here so we can get a closer look at that part of the painting. Oops. Since that's the area that I'm really focused on right now, I might as well zoom in. You know, I'm really trying to think about planes of the head and the volume of how something like comes out towards us in space and then recedes back. So those peaks, you know, I'm trying to imagine if light is coming from this direction out, sort of like this, what part of the volume of the head would be catching and reflecting that light? Or in this case, like this, temperature of light, this warm, almost neon light. I'm excited about this opportunity to take part of the painting that was painted from observation, but then start to transform these, this information in a way where it starts to end up in this like hybrid space of real and imagined, which I always think is really powerful. I think my dog's coming downstairs. Hey, Lenny. We'll see if he comes all the way down today. Let's make it a little bit darker and cooler. Gonna try really hard not to get too carried away here with this part of the painting. Yeah, it can be really hard when we want to hang out with our pets and they don't understand that like we're really focused on our work area. Our dog Lenny is pretty good most of the time with just sort of like sitting quietly. Sometimes if he's bored or needs to go outside or he's hungry, he'll start nudging me with his nose, but he's usually pretty good most of the time about entertaining himself while I'm sitting down here working. All right, I like how this is going so far. Especially with the color property of this glow. I feel like the value of this color is making sense to me. Maybe I'll put a little bit of pink in the eye. It feels like this would be reflecting some of that color as well. Now I suppose I can do the same thing on the hand.
When it comes to restoring cars, Diego's got skills. With total wireless in his corner, the whole world sees it. With the dual camera system on his new iPhone 13, he can take amazing car photos and post them on the fly with super fast 5G, and even turn this part-time hobby into a full-time gig. His claim to fame? He played his iPhone 13 with 5G on us. Get iPhone 13 with 5G on us when you switch to Total 5G Plus Unlimited 3-month plan. Total wireless in your corner. For limited time on select $5 Plus support and unlimited features. T-Mobile home internet is all about speed, value. What you doing, Jack? First thing, there are so many benefits, you gotta talk fast. T-Mobile home internet ranks #1 customer satisfaction.
I think this pink highlight is going to help make the fingers seem a little bit smaller too.
They won't raise your rate on internet.
They just start to help really separate parts of the planes.
T-Mobile home internet all in for just $55 a month with auto pay and any postpaid voice line. When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
This is ludicrous.
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm, mutual.
I just read your story about your cat, Muffin. Yeah, I mean, cats definitely can be pretty, I don't know, it seems like my sister's cats definitely like their space and don't want to be moved. They've been like that in the past. We don't have any cat. My wife and I are both like mildly allergic to cats, so we don't have any cats, but we like cats a lot. Their personalities are always fun to be around. But I think we definitely probably view ourselves more as dog people if we had to pick one type of pet. But most of that's probably just because of the allergy. We're lucky though because our dog Lenny, who we rescued him from Texas a couple of years ago, and earlier I was saying how he's pretty good about just entertaining himself and doing his own thing during the day. He's 4 years old and he doesn't really act like a puppy most of the time anymore. Every now and again he'll get like really hyper like most dogs and want to run around outside, but during the day I always tell people like he's more like a cat. Like he'll just sit on our bed and sleep or look out the window at people going by, like cars or people walking, or look at the birds. And the nice thing is that he doesn't bark at all when he's just sitting there looking out the window, because we'll take him for walks around the neighborhood and he'll just be kind of like doing his thing, trotting along, and there'll be dogs like every 4 or 5 homes. There'll be a dog in a window barking and like losing its cool. And every time we see that, my wife and I are just like, man, we got really lucky that our dog doesn't want to bark at everything that goes by the window, because that would get old really fast. So we're very grateful that he's a pretty chill dog. So I'm trying to decide where the really vibrant key highlights are going to be on the face. I feel like down here makes sense. Maybe in here a little bit. Maybe we'll put a little bit on the knuckles here. This is the hard part with trying to just paint from imagination. Is like, it's kind of like this part of the painting where I'm like, well, do I like this? Do I not like this? Should I change this? And trying to make sure that this is going to make sense visually is, it's like it would be helpful to just have a reference to go off of, because you're not really questioning like, does this make sense? Or, physically, should these things be connected differently or separated differently? Because now I'm like looking at parts of the portrait and going, well, I might have gone a little overboard with some of these glowing effects, but if I can soften them, then maybe it'll start to feel more natural. Yeah, I think the other thing I'm struggling with on the face right now is like trying to decide the position of the head compared to the window. Like, should more of the face be turned away from the window? Like, that's kind of what I'm looking at right now and trying to figure out. So I think that looks more natural just by slightly toning things down. And actually I can probably pull a little bit of this into the neck just so I don't forget. Yeah, it's funny how dogs and cats can have like reversed personalities. Okay, I think that also helps. And then I need to bring this color onto the clothes.
Total Wireless is made to totally keep up with you. We have unlimited data that never slows down, covered by the Verizon 5G network, and all for less than $30 a month, and you get 4 lines. And the best part, we give you a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G when you switch to 5G Limited or 5G Plus Unlimited plans. Visit your local Total Wireless store today. Total Wireless, with total.
Alright, I'm gonna zoom the camera back out again.
But that won't fix your phone. That'll only give you the rapper Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the
Okay, so I mean, I definitely feel like, you know, it's allowing these separate areas of the painting to feel a lot more connected now, which I'm really happy about. I still am not sure if this color down at the foreground of the shoulder makes sense. I think it works up here, like this sort of soft kind of shadow look and effect, I think makes sense. Part of me feels like maybe the top of the wall should be darker than too. Like I should glaze that and bring some of the value down slightly just to make it feel more like this like nighttime setting. Because this feels like it's sort of like evening, really low light type of a shadow and relationship. So I should probably carry that logic up through the top of the painting. So I'm going to try to do that right now and then see how we're doing. So let's go ahead and grab more of my medium. I have to be kind of careful because there's a lot of different colors of paint that are in the medium from when I've taken my brush and just like dipped it while it had paint on the hairs into the medium pile, and then those colors just kind of sit in there. Usually it's not a big deal, like I can kind of just get by with bits and pieces of different colors in my mixtures, but for a glaze, like oiling out like this, it can definitely be a problem if you have titanium white or a really opaque color in with your medium that you're putting down on the panel. It can really shift the color of things on the painting, which sometimes that's not very helpful. So let's see if I can just make sure this is worked into the surface everywhere. I think that looks good. Maybe we can use this brush here. So I'm going to take the color I used for the shadow and just make it a lot cooler by adding ultramarine blue and a little bit of my Portland Cool gray, just to make sure that it's not super, super dark. Then we can see how this looks. I mean, that's kind of a purpley color still. I definitely want this to be cooler at the top in terms of temperature. And that seems kind of dark. I think this last color I put on will work. So let's try that. I'm just going to leave traces of this color around the top part of the painting, and then I'll come back with a dry brush and blend this around and soften the color. Do the same thing over here. Okay, I might as well bring the value of the hair over here back to a darker color.
in foreign currency? No. Carvana gave me an offer in minutes, picked it up, and paid me on the spot. Super convenient.
That is super convenient. Sell your car to Carvana and swap hassle for convenience. Pick up easy to find.
This is it. The night when everything changes. Because tonight, you're going to try Domino's new Parmesan stuffed crust pizza. And once you've experienced that buttery flavored handmade pan dough, stop the perfection stuffed cheese with 100% real mozzarella, topped with their signature garlic seasoning, and sprinkled with real
Yeah, just kind of hanging out, listening to music and commercials. Yeah, I'm just kind of like really focusing in on the painting. I really like how it's going though. I think it's starting to feel a little bit more complete between the different pieces, which is exciting. I think adding in those pink, red, glowing highlights is definitely making it seem like everything is one moment, which I'm really happy about. So I was starting to feel like things were getting a little too kind of like disconnected. But yeah, I hope your process is going well. For your drawing. Let's see. I'm really happy with like the contrasts and just that overall like atmospheric subtlety of the contrast. Like I think by going over a lot of the shirt, that's also helping things feel a lot less eye-catching, and this I think is really helping the painting feel a little bit more dynamic and dramatic, having these like really dark, soft edges. And I'm happy that I went up and added a darker blue at the top. And then I kind of want to get back into this area, I think, and maybe start working back into those spots too. I'm probably going to pause on the portrait here for today and plan on coming back and working on it maybe tomorrow or the following day, because I'll have to like take a shower and find the same clothes and everything. But the tricky part, the biggest challenge I'm facing right now is just like the blending of two different types of lighting on the body, because this idea of a warm glow coming from the window is very different than the lighting I had when I was making the portrait, which was very overhead and dramatic from like one particular light source. Thankfully though, most of the highlights are on the same side of the face, so I don't feel like they're clashing terribly. But when I look at like the clothing, it's like, okay, what I'm trying to decide is, do I want the relationships of light on the portrait to all come back to one light source, like the window, for example? Because if that's what I'm after, then I'm going to have to adjust some of what was being seen when I made this from observation. And those are the things now that are kind of becoming a little bit of a problem. It's like, does it make sense if I'm following this new idea of the light source? I would prefer to be able to have both, where it's sort of like this is under its own lighting conditions separate from whatever's happening in the window. Like maybe there's an overhead light off of the wall that the figure is standing partially under. I think that's where I'm currently, that's where I'm currently leaning. But regardless, I'm really happy with like the amount of variety that's starting to come into play in the painting in terms of color properties and relationships of warm and cool. Like on the walls, both of the walls in the painting. I'm looking back at this other corner though of the painting. I need to wipe out. Let me just grab a new paper towel. I need to wipe out part of these colors here. They're a little too dark, I think. I might end up coming back to repainting some of these lines. Because I kind of also want to create this like this feeling like the panels are stacked on top of each other so that there would be a little bit of a shadow underneath, each of the panels, So that's something I'll probably do later on this week once these colors are set a bit better. But I think I'm going to take a quick break and use the restroom, maybe let my dog outside. I'm not sure how long I plan to live stream today. I might try to only put in like a 3-hour session today. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Just because I have a few other things I need to do this afternoon still. But so far it's been a lot of fun to work on this. And I'm glad that some of you are able to tune in and hang out while I'm painting today. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to say before I take a quick break? I think that's it. I'm gonna take a break and then I'll come back and work on this space. I might go back into parts of the sky and decide like, are there going to be clouds? Do I want to put in other distant pieces of information? And start to think about some of those things. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna take a break. I'll be back in a few minutes. Hope you enjoy the music while I'm gone. All right, let's see. Let's get back into the painting here. All right, let's see. The other thing I was just thinking about too is that I need to figure out how I want to frame this painting, and if there's going to be that extra space at the bottom to incorporate physical three-dimensional space, whether that's just like an empty box or a type of material that I could fill that space with, or leave an object in. So those are things I'm also thinking about right now. But we'll see. I was also, I think last week, a couple of days, I also was talking about how the hand could be holding something, and I wish I would have thought about that earlier, because maybe I would have chosen a different gesture for the hand. Like, what if the hand was, out like this? It could have been just like holding an object. I've done that in paintings before, so I'm not sure if that's... I think that was part of the reason why I knew I wanted to just follow the gesture in the Giorgio de Chirico painting. But actually, there was something I was going to share, a recent thing that I added to my website. So if anyone's interested, I recently started posting a blog on my website again. It's been something that I've tried on and off for a long time. But if you are on my website, on the news page, you'll be able to find any current or recent blog posts. And I just recently added one today, prior to the live stream, and thought I would just give you a quick preview of what this page looks like. So basically this post is called 125 self-portraits, and it's kind of a just quick little pause on this process of the live streams and where the painting is currently at, and people are invited to check out the videos. Some of the live stream videos I've been noticing are not letting me embed the URL into my website or blog posts like this. I have a feeling it's because of the copyright claims on some of the live streams. But like this one didn't have any copyright claims, and it pasted right away, without problems, right onto the blog post. So anyway, this is more of an intro into the whole live stream playlist. So if people are interested, they can always find the other videos through this one. But, I was thinking recently, like, I wonder how many self-portraits I've painted that I can find photos of and go back and try to track down. And I was able to find, just on the database of my website alone, 124 different self-portraits. And so I collected them into this gallery here in the blog post in reverse chronological order. So this is one of the most recent self-portraits, and then some of these are from last year. And some of them are plein air, some of them are from a mirror, some of them are just like from imagination or with photographs, kind of like these two. And yeah, I thought it would be kind of fun just to share the, like just single portfolio of self-portrait drawings and paintings that span different mediums and styles. Back in 2020, I was doing this series of daily drawings. I think this was 2020. Yeah, so these were kind of like COVID little drawings, and there were a few that I made based on self-portraits or photos. And then, there's some that are drawings that were then, just completely made from imagination and then turned into paintings. This is painted right over this drawing that I had sealed with matte medium. Some of them are digital drawings that are based on self-portrait concepts. This is one I was just thinking about when I was talking about maybe a hand could be open. holding something. But I was like, oh, I've done that before. Maybe I should just follow the Takiriko gesture and see what happens. Some of them are mixed media. Like this is a painting slash sculpture, kind of a wall hanging sculpture with a little clay self-portrait. And I realized like I've been making self-portraits for a really long time, and they've always been a very like flexible type of subject to experiment with. So some of these are, really experimental ideas, playful, humorous ideas. These are all gouache paintings on paper. They're pretty small, like 4x5 or 6x6 inches. Oil paintings on paper, gouache and pen and colored pencil. So yeah, there's quite a variety of mediums. And then when I was in grad school, I experimented with some found objects that I altered, and I did this series of cowboy boots with New Balance, logo branding, and I had this exhibition called Super Duper while I was in grad school, where some of those pieces came from. Most of the pieces are paintings or drawings. There's quite a few drawings in here as well. And then some of these are getting back to like the gap years that I had between undergrad and grad school. I think a lot of these pieces were all made prior to grad school. This was one of my senior pieces in undergrad. This really large, it's not huge, but it's larger than life-size self-portrait from a mirror. This was part of my thesis show. I think this one was in my thesis show. And some of these were from photos. This is a charcoal drawing. I did a few where like there were no eyes in some of these. That was kind of a visual theme I was exploring for a while. This is 2014 when I was in undergrad. It's an oil painting on Arches oil paper. It's just like an alla prima sketch. This was based on a photograph that my sister took for one of her college photography classes. I kind of modeled this giraffe mask for her, and I liked some of those film photographs turned out, and wanted to make a painting from one of them. And this is the oldest one that I could find from 2013. It's an oil painting on canvas. But yeah, I thought, it'd be kind of cool to share just self-portraits, just to go back and see the different experiments and ideas. So since I'm working on this painting, I figured I would share this with you. In terms of framing, I talked about this in one of the last live streams. Like, I kind of want to play with the frame and to really design the frame to expand the content of the painting. I could see some sort of architectural type of frame making it feel or look almost like a house. Like, that would be kind of interesting to play with reality a little bit. So that might be something I'll do down at the bottom of the painting here. But yeah, so feel free to take a look at this if you're interested. This was a favorite self-portrait of mine because it was really textured, and there were like 4 or 5 different layers of the painting where I was bringing in a lot of glazing and scraping away the paint and then glazing back over that. So there's just a ton of organic surface quality, like information, that I really love in this painting. But all right, let's get back into painting. But like I was just saying, if I do decide to add something into the grip of the hand, I could see that object making an appearance in the reel, within the bottom of the frame. I think that would be a really interesting way to just expand the narrative potential of the painting. I also could see maybe doing, like I was just saying with the paneling, like what if the paneling was part of the frame, like there were 2 or 3 strips of like real physical wood. And then maybe over in the bottom right corner, I could have some kind of an object, you know, that's sculpted, or maybe something that is painted like trompe-l'oeil, to make it look like it's three-dimensional. Like that could be kind of an interesting idea too. But I have to really be careful about the height of the whole piece, because there's a 24-inch, maximum size limit for this juried show. So I think I'd have to go with a float frame around most of the painting, but then at the bottom I could incorporate maybe 5 or so inches of space. But I mean, I'm just trying to imagine, like, where would the placement of the object make the most sense if there was a physical thing. I mean, I keep thinking back to the Takiriko painting, which I think that's this file here. You know, how he has that piece of, I think it's like a tangelo or tangerine. He has that sitting in the foreground. It's like, do I want to make an object that looks like an orange, or, you know, paint an orange, or some sort of form? I could go with an eggshell. I've been painting a lot of eggshells lately. That might be an interesting object to put down at the bottom left. So I guess that's the thing I'm trying to think about already, is like, compositionally, what would be interesting? You know, it's like, should that moment be more on the right side or the left side? I don't think in the middle really makes sense. I mean, that would create a triangular, you know, pathway, which that actually might be interesting, but I think I'd want it off center at least a little bit. Like maybe if it was sort of like this, that would work. I don't have to decide right now, but it's something I should really be thinking about, since I only have like 2 weeks, actually less than 2 weeks to finish the painting, I think. Well, no, yeah, I have about 2 weeks. So anyway, just thought I would share that with you guys too. Let's see. There was something else I was thinking about with this part of the body in front of the window, because someone else had messaged me, I think on Instagram, and said something about the body not being behind the glass, and they thought that was a really interesting moment, and wanted to know if that was something I was going to leave in the painting. And I think I might do that. You know, now I'm trying to figure out, like, maybe even like creating a shadow, you know, kind of like the direction of this shadow from the light source that's over here. I think I might do that right now. Try to create this look or feeling of a shadow with the body there. What would also maybe be interesting is if it looked almost like this figure was in the wall. That might be kind of an interesting idea too, to have the body come all the way down and create a little bit of a lip or a separation, like there's a gap in between the walls. I think that could be kind of an interesting visual too. And that feels a little less like collage-y, because right now I think because this has such a sharp outer line, and where it meets the window, it feels like a cutout piece of paper or something, you know. And I feel like if I have it go into the wall, it'll feel more like this dimensional living, you know, being. So I'm gonna try that right now and see how that looks. This is going to be another one of those challenges where it's like I have to try to match the color that I had here. Let's see what this looks like. It's actually pretty good. Like, I can't really see those marks. So I'm going to use this to bring the body down. Seems a little bit warmer Then what's here? I probably should... Oh, what am I doing? I should probably glaze this too. So let's wipe that off real quick and add medium in here. So I really want this to be a pretty smooth transition, kind of like this area here. So we need to grab more of my medium. It's getting kind of chunky. It's almost time to tube up more of that oleo gel medium. Oops, that's a little too much probably. Maybe. Instead of using the paper towel to blend that medium around, I'm going to try using a brush this time because this part of the painting isn't quite as old as the back, well, you know, parts of the body over here. So if I'm pushing a little too hard with the paper towel, that starts to take off some of the paint, and I don't want to do that. So let's see if maybe this can give me a smoother surface. I've made paintings before. It's been a long time, but I used to make paintings that were like incorporated a lot of glazing. And for those paintings, I think, if I remember correctly, I used to just oil out like the entire painting. And then it's like I know every part of the surface has that like refreshed layer of oil, and I can kind of paint wherever I want, knowing that the surface is going to be prepared and accepting new layers of paint. But those paintings were a lot smaller than this one is, so that thought didn't really cross my mind. But since I know I'm going to be working on the figure today, I might as well oil out the whole thing. And a little bit of the background around this figure too.
Definitely a mouse click.
Nice try. It was sorting 100 sticky notes with a Canva whiteboard. We also would have accepted resizing a Canva video into 10 different sizes.
What? No way.
Yes way. One click can go a long way. Love your work at
It's amazing the value difference, you know, if you can see as I'm going over parts of the hair, it looks like it's getting so much darker. Like this color behind the ear is dry, and if I go over it with oil, it helps me see the value of that color. And this is where oiling out is really helpful, because you might be putting a different color on top of the hair, and if you're, you know, gauging your new color off of the properties of this versus down here, that might really throw off the whole painting, or that part of the painting, because then, like, when you eventually varnish or oil out the painting, you know, the color is going to shift like it just did right now, but the color you put down before or afterwards, I mean, that might really be way off in terms of how bright or dark it is in comparison. And then you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I should have made this new color darker or lighter or more chromatic. So that's probably the biggest benefit of oiling out during the process of making your oil painting. And I know I'll probably work over in this part of the painting too, so I'm just going to bring a little bit of oil over here. it's also recommended, like if you're using a lot of medium to do this, that it's good for the longevity of the painting to, let's go over here too, wipe off any excess medium. Like you don't want to leave big globs of medium, because as that dries, it might become kind of like tacky in its consistency, and then it might crack if you try to glaze over those areas later on. I need to be kind of careful around areas that I've already painted. Like the highlight on the hand now is wet, so I gotta be kind of careful around this edge. This is what I meant when I was like, you know, it makes sense to just oil out the whole painting first before you paint anything in the new sessions, because otherwise you're trying to be really careful in avoiding certain areas. But now I'll be able to better gauge like the type of colors I need to put in to some of these areas, and if I lean to one side, I can really see where I've missed passages of the surface with the medium. So otherwise, it can be kind of hard to tell. I might as well go all the way up here. Trying to avoid the seats of the swings because those areas were a little bit thicker, and I worry that I might rub off some of that paint or blend it out, but it looks like it's fairly dry, so that's good. Okay. It's a lot easier now to see the contrasts of chroma and saturation too, which is good. Just want to see if this is wet down here. I know I was also talking about maybe making the figure in the window look less legible, so it's more ambiguous. I think maybe that's something I can still do today too. So there's two things now that I think I want to try to work on. The window space, this one, and then pulling the body, the figure of this body into the wall, making it feel like it's sort of living in the wall or coming out of the wall. I don't know if I talked about this at all, but I keep imagining this little patch of the shadow having flowers. You know, I haven't decided what species of flower I want to put into the painting in that area, so that's something I need to think about. Okay, let's get back to this. And I don't know, I'm like trying to decide if the color of the body it should probably be less chromatic and warm. I think I'm going to have it be a little bit more neutral. Maybe, I don't know, I was going to say maybe a little bit darker in value. Let's see what this looks like. right back. Thanks for hanging out, Lemon. It was really nice to chat with you today. I appreciate you coming back and hanging out with the live stream. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you in another live stream soon. But thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. All right, let's see. It's also really nice of Lemon to like let me know, like, hey, I gotta go. So I know most of the time we just will kind of, I think a lot of us just kind of check into a live stream or something and then just sort of, you know, duck out or go do something else. It's nice when people are like letting me know that they have to head out. Okay, let's see. Whoop. Looks like somebody's here. I guess I'll be back again.
Sightseeing, drawn light cycling, jungle cruise bunny, pirate swash
your flight? Yup, I've got everything I need. Eye mask, neck pillow, T-Mobile, headphones. Well, T-Mobile, you bet. Free in-flight Wi-Fi. 15% off all airlines. I'll never go anywhere without T-Mobile. Same goes from a water bottle, chewing gum, nail clippers.
I'm gonna leave you there.
Find out how you can experience travel better at T-Mobile.com/travel. T-Mobile home internet is all about speed, value. What you doing, Jack? First thing, there are so many benefits. You gotta talk fast. T-Mobile home internet ranks #1 in customer satisfaction for home wireless internet by J.D. Power. Wow, you are good. Try singing it. T-Mobile has price lock. They won't raise your rate on internet. Hulu and Paramount Plus on that. Get T-Mobile home internet all in for just $55 a month with auto pay and any postpaid voice line.
Oops. So I'm trying to make this silhouette seem like just sort of like a shadow, or the outline of a figure standing in the window, but I don't know if the colors I'm using are the right colors for this part of the painting. I don't want this part to draw the eye or draw focus too much, so I think the value relationship between the room and the figure I think is working, but I don't know if this color that I'm using right now is maybe the best color to use.
There's a new class of blockbuster drugs. Drugs like Ozempic. They're changing bodies, and all of a sudden, just the weight starts falling off. Fortunes. They just got too expensive.
They're bank breakers.
And industries.
There's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of skepticism. The impact of these drugs, from business to health, is just beginning.
From the journal, $1 Trillion Shock. Tap now to listen on Spotify. flight? Yep, I've got everything I need. Eye mask, neck pillow, T-Mobile, headphones.
Wait, T-Mobile?
You bet. Free in-flight Wi-Fi. 15% off all Hilton brands. I never go anywhere without T-Mobile. Same goes for my water bottle, chewing gum, nail clippers.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you to it.
Find out how you can experience travel better at T-Mobile.com/travel. Qualifying plan required. Wi-Fi where available on select device. Deposit and online membership required for 10% discount. Terms and conditions apply.
So it is almost 3 o'clock. We've been streaming for almost 3 hours now. I think I'm gonna probably stop here. But I'm really happy with some of the developments today. I think it's starting to get a little bit more weird in some areas, which I'm pretty excited about. I like how this like windowsill turned into a gap in the wall, which also creates a little bit more of a bridge between the two spaces. I talked about maybe putting flowers in the foreground of the window, and now I could see maybe, having them drift into parts of the gap in between the wall. I think that would be kind of an interesting visual too. I like the amount of variety now that the landscape is starting to have, just between the different color shifts. I'm really happy that I cooled off the sky a little bit more and brought in a little bit of a brighter and more saturated combination of greens and blues to create a little bit more atmosphere and depth in the space. So it's starting to feel less homogeneous with that like red hue zone, kind of atmosphere that I was talking about early on. And I like the idea of keeping it fairly analogous and really almost like monochromatic, but I was starting to feel like the distance between certain things wasn't vast enough or separate enough. So I'm happy with how that's looking now. This little window, that's currently the problem of the painting. It's the thing that I can't figure out what I want to do, and I'm just sort of, I don't know, fiddling around with different combinations of colors. And I like the idea of putting a figure or something. It needs something in there, I think. Or maybe not. Maybe it should be empty. I'm not really sure what to do with that, but I'm going to think about it some more. If I decide to keep it kind of close to what we're seeing right now, I'd like to bring in a little bit more variety of hue and just like the size of the marks. I think if I could make this feel a little bit more dense with small, points or hatching lines or something, just to give it a little bit more variety, I think would be interesting. I think one of the things I need to do, maybe if I am live streaming tomorrow, is work back into the landscape and start putting in a lot of these really skinny small blades of grass and start to figure out what the language of this part of the painting is going to look like. Because the concept for that is that the ground plane is being like sucked up out of the frame of the space, like it's being taken away. So I really want to convey that sense of movement and just that sense of like chaos and lack of control. And I think it's kind of losing some of that right now. So hopefully that can kind of find its way in the painting. I like where this wall is at, this purple red wall. I'm probably going to leave that alone for now. But again, I think this just stands out in such an awkward way that I need to really spend some time, envisioning some other ideas for that space. I kind of like this idea of maybe having it be an interior without any subject inside. I think that would create kind of a moment of surprise. I feel like we're almost expected to see a person standing in that frame because we have two other figures in similar environments already. And maybe it could offer an opportunity to put in different props or objects or like patterning or something else that adds to the story. I think even if it was an empty room, it would still act much like a focal point, related to the figures in the painting. Just because of its size and its placement, it's going to naturally, I think, draw our attention to that part of the composition. I think part of the reason I'm not loving it is because its color properties are much closer to this outer wall than anything inside of the painting, like the window. So I think that's probably where I'm feeling kind of stuck. Like I put the wrong color in there and now it's standing out in a really weird, awkward way. So I'm just gonna let it dry and not do anything right now, and then hopefully come back tomorrow and have some ideas on what to do. I'm really happy with the additions to this side of the painting. That atmosphere, I think, is really interesting and just adds a lot more dimension and depth of space. You know, I feel like it's creating a texture and a quality of information that feels more believable to me. The only thing I'm not loving at this very moment is that I left this glowing, warm line around part of the nose on the right side. I don't know if it really is supposed to have that kind of a warm glow over here. It feels like it probably shouldn't be so noticeable. I think a little bit of a glow is okay, but yeah, that seems a little bit better. I think the eye here, I kind of goofed up some of the relationships now because of the glaze of that pink over the right side of the face. So that needs to be adjusted a little bit. I've been noticing, I think I might have made my nose just slightly too long. Like, I think this corner here needs to come up just a little bit. So that might be something the next time I'm painting the portrait, I'll try to correct that too. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's moving in a good direction. You know, I'm pretty happy for the most part with what I'm seeing. The hand still needs to be worked on a bit. You know, I think I have to probably put another session in to make the fingers feel a little bit more real. And that might be enough, right? Is to just start to put in more of the creases in the hand, maybe a few more subtle shifts of color property, find a few more of those points where I can convey the foreshortening of parts of the fingers and the knuckles, and then it might be reading a bit better. But it's definitely leaning more into the fantastical now, I think, by introducing that warm glow from the window. It's creating this more imaginative moment in the painting, which I'm happy about. You know, I think I still want the clothing, the jacket here to feel pretty real. So what I might do before I finish off today is wipe out a little bit of this glaze that I had put down, just so I don't lose some of the contrast that I had in the jacket. Earlier today I talked about the lighting, kind of the challenge of two different types of light sources and how to resolve their similarities or differences. And yeah, I'm feeling a little bit at arms with what direction I want to go with lighting the self-portrait, because I love that sharp contrast on the collar. I don't really want to lose that. You know, it's just a matter of combining the logic of lighting that I started with the window, the light of the window. So that's kind of where we're at. I think this moment of putting the body into the wall was a really good move. I think that creates a little bit more of a placement in the painting that feels more grounded, you know, in where that figure sits in terms of the composition. It feels like it should be in the wall, kind of. Not even from like a rational, logical way of thinking about it. More of just like, I think it just feels more fitting if it's like interacting with the architecture in this way. So I'm happy about that. I think I might still incorporate that like hairy texture on the back, like I had in my drawing initially. So this, you know, kind of like patterning of vertical short lines to convey hair is something I'll probably bring in towards the bottom of the back and the arms. And if I do end up adding these little like flowers or some kind of plant or something, and I bring it into this dark space here, there might be some interesting, overlaps or almost like mimicry of mark making between the hair and these little plants or something. So I'm going to think about that a little bit too. And then I'm going to continue to try and brainstorm what to put in the hand. I think it really needs something. I mean, even if it's not like a totally revealed object, like it's part of an object and it's more about this idea that we know something is being grasped, but we don't know what it is. I think that maybe that's the direction I need to go. Like, what if it was just like, a chain or string or I don't know, something like sort of small. Could be a type of plant, like the root of some kind of a plant would be kind of an interesting visual. I'm just trying to think of something that's skinny and long enough to maybe fit in the hand and then leave the frame of the painting. And maybe it's about this idea of weeding, right? Or like pulling out a problem. I think that fits the mood of the painting, actually. So I'm going to think about that and maybe research some different plants and maybe that's the plant that's in the ground plane. Maybe this is where the connection is being made. And I could even see like this pocket of space down here. Like, what if it's a little open box, and then at the bottom of the inside of the frame there's like a hole or something. I think that's kind of an interesting idea. So all right, I'll end it there on that note. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Huge thanks to Lemon, who's been hanging out in a lot of these recent live streams and interacting with me through the chat. So thanks for being part of the process, Lemon. I appreciate that. And to everybody else who tuned in today, thank you so much. I plan to be live at least, I would say, 2 more of the days this week. It just kind of depends what my schedule ends up looking like. In the meantime, I hope if you're watching this before Saturday, March 15th, don't forget to check out my online spring shop update, which closes this Saturday at midnight. I've got a bunch of original paintings, some reproductions, and a bunch of other really, great original pieces of artwork. So if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to talk about my process or, this painting, for example. I'd love to hear what people are seeing in the painting so far. But on that note, I'm going to sign off. I hope that you have a great rest of your Tuesday, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow. So thanks for watching. I appreciate the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.